and I'm based in Northwest Donegal in Ireland, but I'm actually from Derry. So I've been living a rural life now for the last 17 years, and I started to garden about 14 years ago. I wanted to grow food for the family. So with that, started me on an adventure that has led me to working in community gardens, and also this year a new adventure of working from home. That obviously took the twist that was COVID, the lockdown. So I started to run workshops from my own home here in the potting shed, and I've been reaching out to community gardeners and gardeners alike on growing their own food. So I'm delighted to be here today. For me, the benefits of growing food and growing vegetables and flowers and everything like that has got a number of benefits. Obviously, a healthy lifestyle, being out in the garden, but also the benefits of getting your hands into the soil. And I think a word that I came across a long time ago was biophilia. And that is when we get our hands into the soil, it releases all the feel-good hormones and allows us to just feel good about ourselves, and especially during times of stress and emotional disruption. I think that this gardening has been amazing. So during this time, I just find the benefits so important. And a phrase that always comes to me, I think it was Audrey Hepburn that said it, a quote was, "To plant a seed is to believe in tomorrow." So that's really what drives me to working in the garden, and also to be promoting gardening to other people. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to look at gardening, obviously in a small space, and I'm going to show you some things that we would be doing now at this time of year. So we're going to look at sowing seeds, we're going to look at a small bit of transplanting, and then I've started an outdoor garden from pallets that I want to just show you, and I hope that my internet is working okay for all of this. I hope you can see me okay. So anyway, and we're going to then look at, if we've got extra time, or if I have time at the end, look at some seeds that we're saving at the moment, and then tools that we use in the garden. So I'll start first of all with sowing seeds. At this time of year, we're coming near the middle of the summer. I don't want to say the end of the summer just yet, although it feels like that at times. What I'm doing now at the moment, I'm sowing seeds for the autumn garden and also for the winter time. So at the moment, I'm sowing things like the oriental salads. I'm sowing a lot of herbs that I would have trouble with over the summer, where they would be bolting. Now, bolting means that these plants go to seed, and it's generally here, it's because of the erratic weather, the hot days and then the cold the following day. So I tend to sow my coriander, for instance, at this time of year, because I find that it's better, it grows better in the autumn time, and it overwinters quite well. Also then I would be eating that type of food going into the winter, where you need a wee bit of the coriander, the curries or the spices and stuff like that. So without further ado, I'm going to sow some seeds with you today. So first of all, I want to say that I sow all my seeds in seed trays like this, apart from carrots and parsnips. But everything else I sow in a seed tray in the potting shed. The reason I do this is because of slugs. We get slugs all the time, all through the year. In the beginning of the year, they're very small, but they still do the same amount of damage as when they're larger. So if I sow my seeds in a seed tray like this, I find it much easier to come out and do the nightly check and the morning check. The nightly check, I'd be actually looking for slugs. You can generally see them. I wear a head torch. I go out and keep vigilance on them. So at night, you can see the slugs on the tray. But during the daytime, you might see a little nibble from your salad leaves or your leaves. And the best thing to do then is you just lift up the tray and have a little look underneath, and you'll find the slugs then, and you can dispose of them as you will. But because of that, I always use these trays. Now, these trays are quite heavy duty. I got them about 7 years ago. So the heavy duty ones are much better because you can use them year in, year out. The other thing that I use is a seed compost rather than a multi-purpose compost. I find that using a seed compost is better. it's not as strong in nutrients as a normal compost. So when we use a seed compost, your plants just take that little bit longer to develop, but that means that they don't get leggy and that you've got a slower time to get ready for the spring or to get ready for transplanting. So a seed compost is what I use at that stage. Now, when I put them onto my seed tray, I try not to push down too much. So I just take, I hope you can see me okay. I just take the seed compost and I sprinkle it over the tray like this. And then I gently push into the tray. I don't push it too much because then you would push all the air out. Okay. So you can give it a little tap down as well and just settle the seed compost like that. So once you've got your full tray, you can start to sow up. Now, and if you want, you can wear your gloves. But again, as I say there, I prefer to get my hands dirty, which isn't always the best thing to be saying in the last few months. All right, with keeping your hands clean. So if you prefer to wear gloves, that's good as well. Now, I'm just going to open these seeds. These are coriander seeds that I'm sowing. The coriander that I grow is specifically, the variety is for leaf production, not seed production. If anybody has been ever trying to grow coriander in the past and it's bolted, the reason that it's bolted is that a lot of the coriander that we buy has got that tendency. So go for a leaf rather than a seed production. And this variety is called Coriander Leisure. So just a wee word, if you're ever sowing seeds, the size of the seed is very important when sowing into the soil. So you never want to go too deep. So I would say only sow the seed about 2 or 3 times the depth of the seed, of the size of the seed. So if it's a tiny seed, you're closer to the surface, and if it's a bigger seed, you go down a wee bit. So you don't want it to be too deep, or else it won't have the energy to come back out again. So I use this little tool here. It's called a dibber, and I use it just to create the holes in the seed compost. I won't do the whole tray today because I know that we're under time frame. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of the seed sowing. And if you have any questions at the end, you can always type that into the chat. So I'm only going to sow 1 or 2 seeds for the coriander into each cell. The cells are the individual little cells on the tray. And once I have that done, it's very important then to put a label on. Now, at this time of year, what I've been finding is a lot of my labels, the tool is called a dibber, D-I-B-B-E-R. Now, at this time of year, I find a lot of my labels, I've already been writing on them. So what do? I want to reuse nowadays as much as possible. So all I do is I get a little bit of sandpaper and my labels, and I just, if I can do that while showing you, I just scrape it away, because it's very important that we label up our seeds, because there's so many times that I would be sowing seeds and I think I remember, someone calls me away, and then I come back and I've totally forgot what I was doing. And that's where the dibber comes in handy as well, because if you ever are called away halfway through your sowing, you just pop the dibber in to where you are, if you can see that, pop it into the where you are in the tray, and then when you come back you can continue. So with the sandpaper, I've just taken, I probably need to put a wee bit pressure on. I don't want to do that in case the laptop falls. So once I've got this, the label cleaned, I can then write up on the label what it is. And it's very important to put that on. So coriander, and then the date being the 29th of July, because that will help me then if it turns out to be a really good crop. I also keep a note of it on a clip chart. And if it turns out to be a really good type, and I wonder what time of year did I plant that, that's when it helps a lot. So I just pop up the name and the date, and then I just plant it in. Now, you can also, if you've sown seeds in the past, and you've noticed that your seed tray gets very moldy on the top, you can use a thing called vermiculite. Now, vermiculite is a very light product that we use on top of the soil to stop that molding happening. So you can use that on top of your soil as well if you're sowing seeds. Then I just lightly run my hand over the soil, the seed tray, and as you can see, just like that. And then I'll give that a little watering. Now, at this time of year, germination can be slightly erratic, just depending on the cold or the heat, in fact. So I leave that now in the potting shed for a week or two, and then I get ready to transplant. Now, transplanting my vegetables, what does that mean? To transplant a vegetable, to transplant from the seed tray into a raised bed, or to take it outside, or to put it into a pot if you're growing in a small space. So when you are transplanting your vegetables or your plants, it's very important to harden them off. So if you've been sowing them indoors and you want to bring them outdoors, it's very important that you bring them in and out. It's not just a case of seeing a nice day and thinking that you can put them outside. It's a case of the plant having to adapt. So every time you take the plant out, it starts to change its cell structure for the outdoor life. And then you bring it in at night time, and then you take it out again, and then you bring it in. Do that for about a week, and then the plant should be adapted then for the outdoor life. When you are transplanting your vegetables, you want to make sure that you've got in your cell tray that they've got a good enough root structure to be able to be transplanted. So what you're looking for, I'm just going to show you some vegetable from some beetroot that we'll be getting ready to plant outside into our raised beds. And this is the beetroot here. As you can see, the leaves are lovely and healthy looking, but what I'm looking for is underneath is some root development, because the root development is very important for that next stage. So I'm just going to hold up one of the plants now for you. If it comes out for me. So what I'm looking for is the root development on the plant, be nice and healthy. So as you can see, I've got what they call the true leaves. So first of all, you get the seed leaf. This is the seed leaf here, but you don't transplant it at that stage. You want to get the true leaf. So that's the true leaf there. And then I want to also check, have I got a nice healthy root development? Now, a lot of plants don't like you to be too, not to be like at that stage. I would go very careful when I'm transplanting, because a lot of plants you can set back if you rush the job. And like that as well, when we talk about, you know, mindfulness and being present, I think when you're gardening, it's very important that you be present, because you're there, you are the carer of this little plant. You've been looking after it, you've been nurturing it. And when you are taking it out into the garden, the idea is that you're leaving it, I suppose, to fend for itself. So you just want to take it over to that last stage and really look after it at that point. So when I'm transplanting, I might also transplant, well, if I'm transplanting into a raised bed, I make sure I harden off. But if I am transplanting into a pot, what I want to do is I want to use a product called Perlite within my potting compost. This product is Perlite, and it helps with the drainage. So you can use this. I'm just going to show you a little sporkful. I'm trying to do everything on the camera. It's even harder than you think. So this is my potting compost or multi-purpose compost with Perlite through it. So as you can see, I've mixed that up, because those little roots, when they go into a pot, it just helps them develop and gives them the air and also the water retention that they need. So the Perlite is another product that we use within the pots if you're going to do that. Now, I'm just looking at the time there. I'm going to show you now my little outdoor garden that I'm creating. Where we live here, we're lucky enough, we've got a few acres of garden, but what I want to do is focus on a small garden today. So this is a garden that we've been creating and starting to create out of pallets. So this is something that you could access for next to nothing really. And I'm going to try and move my computer now, so I hope this works. Okay, and if you just look behind me, we're actually having a really good day today for a change. I was panicking away thinking that if it rains here today, I won't be able to do this. But I'm going to move the laptop down, and I hope that you are able to stay with me during this time. Okay, so this is what we call guerrilla gardening. If you can see behind me, what we've done is we've got a pallet, a very cheap pallet. I think we got it for free, you know, so a cheap, like €2 or €3 you could buy it for if you have to buy them. But then you get this thing called the pallet collar, and the pallet collar kind of fits on to the pallet perfectly. This was also given to us, so we're reusing this, repurposing this pallet collar. And what I'm going to do is within the pallet, I'm going to put down a felt. I wanted to show you this before I do it because there's no point in showing you after it's done. But I'm going to line it with this felt weed matting. So that's going to go on the bottom, and I'm going to bring it over the top and secure it onto the edge so that no soil can get out around the pallet collar. Now the pallet collar we've got, it's quite old, but I think it'll be okay for one more season. If you do get a brand new pallet collar, all the better. It should last you for a couple of years. If you really want to do this for a few years, I would double layer the weed matting as well on the bottom. And then I would just fill that up with a multi-purpose compost. And if you wanted to do some of your perlite to add on extra drainage, you could do that. Now, another idea that I was thinking was that over the winter time, if you're going to be planting out some perhaps oriental salads or winter lettuce or some of your a few spring cabbages, you might want to overwinter them on this. And if you're going to do that, I would protect it against the elements. Now, where we are based, our biggest element is the wind. So we have a real problem with our wind here. So to protect it against the wind, we simply use horticultural fleece. So this horticultural fleece can go over the these pipes that you can pick up. I suppose when we talk about reusing, I'm sure people would have these maybe lying around, or you could just pick them up in a hardware shop. When you've got this pallet filled with soil, you can just push this into the sides like that. And what that creates is a mini cloche, or a cold frame, I suppose. And then you could just cover it over with your horticultural fleece. The plants then should be protected against the wind, but who's to say, sometimes if you get a very, very strong wind. But the benefits of this being on a pallet, if you do get a very, very strong wind, that you could lift the pallet up. It might take a few people, but you could lift the pallet up and move it. So I think that this is a great idea for repurposing, but also to create an instant small garden. If you can just see behind me then, this frame is just the cloche itself. So if you already have a garden and you maybe want to just have a little bit of protection over the winter time, you can make just the frame and do the same with the hoops over the top, and then you can protect it with the fleece. Or indeed, if you had any spare, or if you knew anybody with any spare polytunnel plastic, that might also be a good idea that you could have. So it's just a few ideas that maybe come to mind, that these are maybe a project for the next few weeks. And with that, then you would have some salads and some vegetables, some greens especially, to take you through the winter months. And I think it's really important that we eat our greens in the winter time, because it obviously gives us all the vitamins that we need. And the one thing I love about the oriental salads, so oriental salads, when I talk about those, they are the the salads that we would see. They're called mizuna or mibuna, pak choy, those type of leaves. And these are really good for us because they're part of the brassica family, the cabbage family. So they also have all the same vitamins and nutrients that the cabbages have, which helps us get through the shorter days and gives us all the vitamins that we need. So I'm just going to lift you up again and move you back into the potting shed. I hope that's all right. And I really hope that you were able to hear me and see me during that little presentation. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to show you, these are a few jobs that we're doing also this week. And one of them is we're starting to save seeds. Just like I mentioned at the beginning, you know, to plant a seed is to believe in tomorrow. And to save a seed, I also think is really important, because it's given us that feeling that we are taking it from one generation to the next. So we're really completing that cycle of looking after our plants. And just this morning, me and my daughter, we were out looking at different flowers, especially little wildflowers that we've been sowing all around the garden. So this one is called the corncockle, and it's a lovely purple flower that has just gone over. So the seed heads are starting to develop. And I noticed this morning, I went out and I noticed that a few of the seed heads were starting to open up. So I quickly called my daughter and I said, quickly, we have to cut some of these flower heads or seed heads, because as you can see, they've started to burst open. And when they burst open, they scatter their little seeds. And these are what we're going to save. So as you can see there, we're saving the seeds. And you can get yourself a few containers. There's the little seed there. So if you get yourself a few containers like this, or indeed a few paper bags, and just pop the flower heads just before they open, because if I can do this now, we see if it works. I think this is maybe this one. You need to get the ones that are just ready to pop, and you can pop them open. You can hear that, it pops open. And then inside it is going to be a lot of seeds. So if you think about your return investment on seed saving, and this is obviously only a very brief kind of show and tell, but as you can see, we're talking maybe from one flower head, oh god, it's only halfway here, from one flower head, we're talking maybe, well, that's only halfway because there's still lots more seeds in there, but you're talking maybe 20-30 seeds. So I'm going to try and save as many seeds as possible this year, especially during the COVID, the start of the pandemic this year. A lot of seed companies, I would buy a lot of my seeds in Irish Seed Savers, and they were struggling because of the orders that people were putting in. I suppose everybody wanted to grow vegetables and flowers. They had more time in their hands, which was great. But the places were really struggling to keep up with their orders. So I'm thinking a lot of the flowers that I really like, I have to now start to save seed. So this is the seeds from one little flower head, and one packet that we would have bought this year maybe had 10 seeds in it, but that's given us hundreds of flower heads. So my return on the one packet of seeds is probably going to be thousands and thousands of seeds. So it's really a good thing to be doing now. Maybe this week, keep an eye out for the flower heads just before they go over, because then if they open, then you've lost the seeds. So you want to get that. So go around with maybe a paper bag and start to save your seeds for next year. I suppose the other thing that I'll just leave you with now. Oh, the name of this plant, Leslie, is corncockle. CORNCOCKLE. Do I have any here? No, I don't have any in my flower arrangement. That I do a lot of the little wildflower arrangements, but I find the corncockle kind of doesn't last as long. But it's a lovely purple flower. Maybe I'll send a photograph of it in the notes there. So, and finally, I think I've got, I'm not sure on time, I know I've got 30 minutes before we go to question and answers. Thank you, Claire. I just want to show you a few tools that we would have around the garden and in my potting shed. I think it's very important to have your tools that are well organized. I'm not sure if you can see behind me, but to have your tools accessible in your garden, so that at any time you can reach for them. And hopefully I can show you one or two tools that I just couldn't be without. This one here is called a hoe, H-O-E, and it's got a lovely blade at the top, but it's curved at an angle. So I use that for weeding, but I also use it for making little drills in the garden. And the drills are the lines that you would use before to prepare the soil for planting, for transplanting. So I would use this for making the drills, but then also for weeding out plants. And you keep this nice and sharp. I would use a sharpening stone to keep it sharp so that you can slice the weeds off. Because the one thing you don't want is the weeds growing better than your plants that you're trying to cultivate. And then the other one, it's a hoe as well, but it's a hand tool, and this is called the oscillating hoe. And you keep this sharp as well, but I didn't put the handle on it because I go down with this and I can slice away when I'm weeding. And it's just to end on a final note of weeding. Everybody asks about weeds. It's been noted that weeding is one of the #1 horticultural therapy things that you can be doing in your garden. But I would always recommend that if you're going to weed, that you go there in the right frame of mind. Don't go out weeding thinking, this is a horrible job, I have to do this. Think about it as a form of therapy, and that you are in connection with nature, and you're there and you're weeding away and you're having a great time, and you get a great satisfaction of the end results.